China's state railway company has offered to build the entire HS2 high-speed rail line linking London to Birmingham, Manchester and Leeds in just 5 years. In a letter seen by Building Magazine, the China Railway Construction Corporation says it can also deliver the project at a much lower cost. Government officials say preliminary discussions have taken place, but no concrete commitments have been made.
Opposition politicians are raising questions about a so-called secret agreement between the Scottish Government and Chinese companies.
Nicola Sturgeon's opponents are questioning why an agreement between Scotland and Chinese companies, which could be worth up to £10 billion, was signed 2 weeks ago.
People will expect to know, will expect answers from the government as to what this is all about, what the money is going to be spent on, and what has been given in return to the Chinese for this investment.
From beavers to burials, the Scottish Government send out press releases on every aspect of life, but not a £10 billion trade deal with China. A row over Chinese whispers. Why didn't the Scottish Government shout about this trade agreement? We'll be asking the SNP, as the opposition say they have grave concerns. Good evening. The Scottish Government's published an investment agreement with a Chinese consortium, potentially worth £10 billion. Good news, you might think. But the deal was signed on the 21st of March and wasn't officially announced by ministers. The details emerged last night, sparking claims the government signed a secret deal.
Scotland and China are two countries with long-standing cultural and trade links. But questions are now being asked about a major investment agreement signed by the Scottish Government and a Chinese consortium. The agreement, which could be worth up to £10 billion, was signed in Edinburgh on the 21st of March by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, Chinese investment group Sino-Fortone and China Railway No. 3 Engineering Group, the world's largest construction company.
The SNP are never backwards at coming forwards on these things, and it's a big £10 billion agreement that's been signed. I think we need to have a better understanding as to why they kept it secret for so long.
I've got grave concerns about this memorandum that the First Minister has signed with a Chinese company. One of my concerns is why we only found out about it through the Chinese private company's website, why this wasn't explained to Parliament, why the Scottish Government didn't choose to publish it until it was already in the public domain.
If the Chinese are going to invest in public infrastructure here in Scotland, will it be Chinese steel or British steel?
Labour has sought to regain the initiative in the election campaign by pressing SNP ministers for full details of their investment talks with Chinese firms. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, insists she has nothing to hide. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
Today, Labour seems to have decided attack is the best form of defence. They're questioning why the First Minister quietly signed an understanding with Chinese businesses last month and only published details last night after photographs appeared in the Chinese media.
We're talking about £10 billion worth of potential investment in Scotland with the Chinese. We don't know what for, we don't know who was in the room, we don't know what the detail of that deal is.
But in Glasgow, the Scottish Tories say the infrastructure investment SNP ministers are seeking from China also needs explanation.
We don't know from what the Scottish Government's now been forced to publish what China is getting out of this deal from Scotland. We don't know what Scotland's getting out of this deal, so it's very hard to judge whether it's a good or bad deal.
It's a bit suspicious for the SNP, who are always shouting about everything that they do. So I'm a bit suspicious. I want to find out more. That's why they need to come clean.
The owner of a Chinese company that's seeking to invest in Scotland has been linked to corruption. Norway's pension fund was advised to blacklist the China Railway Group, a subsidiary of which signed an understanding with the Scottish Government that could lead to billions of pounds worth of Chinese investment here. Our political correspondent Glenn Campbell has the story.
The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, signed a memorandum of understanding on the 21st of March with two Chinese firms, Sino-Fortone and China Railway No. 3 Engineering Group, which could lead to £10 billion worth of infrastructure investment. Now it's emerged that China Railway No. 3's parent company, China Railway Group, has been linked with bribery and corruption by the Ethics Council that advises Norway's pension fund.
I'm not happy for China to invest in Scottish infrastructure on the wrong terms. I don't think that's the right thing to do. We should be having the highest possible standards on human rights, on business practices. That's what I think people in Scotland would expect from a Scottish government, but we don't seem to be getting that from the SNP.
Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP government didn't want us to know they'd signed a £10 billion deal with China for potential investment in Scottish public services. Now we need to know the detail of this deal, we need to know what she signed up to.
The only reason we know about this China deal is because it ended up on the private website of a private company in China. Now that's not the way the Scottish Government is supposed to work.
There is no agreement to invest, there is no actual investments agreed. This is about exploring opportunities, and if there are any specific proposals for investment, then full due diligence will be done.
Chinese communist leaders are cracking down on corruption, but tonight questions still surround one of the state-owned enterprises that's seeking to fly the flag for China in Scotland.